Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be checking out how strong is the US military in 2025 by The Military Show here on YouTube. Yes guys, got a few recommendations for this one in the YouTube comments. A big thank you to everyone who's dropping a recommendation telling me to check out these new creators. Really appreciate it. But yeah, we're going to be checking out how strong is the US military in 2025. I checked out a video like this few years ago, well maybe more than a few now, I want to say shit, probably 2019 2020, a video kind of like this, you know, and I'm assuming largely right, and again, with my ex-reservist background, I'm under no disillusionment, I guess, of just how powerful potentially you guys can be. I'm very curious to see the updated numbers. Again, I haven't checked out a video like this in a very long time, so I'm very curious to see if there's been any upgrades to the budget, any upgrades to the numbers, what those look like, sort of thing. But I'm not under no disillusionment just how powerful the US military is. You guys are the best in the world, probably, I'd have to say, in my opinion. I know a lot of people from other countries like to give you guys flack. Oh, the US military, oh, we give them what for? Oh, they're not that strong, you know, I'm sure we can put up a good fight. No, you guys would probably get obliterated, plain and simple. The ability for the US to exert force across the planet as well, I think it's what, first and third or first and fourth biggest air forces in the world, being of course the US Air Force and of course the US Navy. Not to mention the US Navy itself being able to project force across the world as it deems fit. Yeah, you guys are some of the best in the world. I'm really excited to check this video out to see exactly the extent of it in 2025. So yeah, of course, if you guys enjoy, make sure you leave a like, subscribe for more content from me. Of course, leave your recommendations down in the comments below. Big thank you to all of our members, all of our Hastati, Principe, Dagenhart, and of course our Prefects, Fear, and Hobbit. Appreciate you guys. You guys inspire me to make more content for you guys every single day, of course. And with that, guys, I say we check this video out. Of course, this is going to be my authentic Canadian reaction, Canadian reservist reaction to the American military. Let's check it out, guys. Captions are on. Quality is 1080p. Without any further delay, let's get it.
The US military isn't just strong in 2025, it's unmatched. According to Global Firepower, America ranks #1 in the world, again. With a power index score of 0.0744, it leads ahead of Russia and China, who trail behind with 0.0788. That might sound close, but in military terms, it's amassive gap. When it comes to raw firepower, funding, global reach, and speed, no one even comes close.
No.
Today we're breaking down exactly how the US keeps its edge, from trillions in defense spending to unmatched manpower, aircraft, and naval dominance. Let's start where military power begins: money.
Now, I do want to say right off the bat, I'm not trying to pause too much throughout this video. I think it's going to be a lot of not a lot of breaks in it. But I do want to say the only way I could ever see America being hindered, right, as an outside observer, right, let's have you, right, would be either internal conflict within the country itself, because you guys have a lot of that, and you know, I can see why, and you know, there's a lot of divisive politics within the U.S. It's not just the U.S. It's every Western nation as a whole now. You know, unfortunately, it's a product of our democracy that these things kind of happen. I'm hoping that America can get that under wrap. I feel like currently, as you guys have it now, most of your population is in agreement, which is very good to see. That's awesome for you guys. However, you know, it would be either internal strife, or I believe your microchip production. I believe lots of that is overseas currently, and in the modern environment. I think you want to start making a lot of those in-house, right? Because I believe Taiwan is the one making a lot of your microchips. So I think the fear there is that if China ever wants to fuck around, let's call it, you know, a lot of your production capabilities for some of your more higher tech equipment is overseas, right? So trying to get a lot of that developed in-house, I think that would be a boon for you guys for sure. Now, this is obviously, I'm not the most educated. I'm gonna completely just say that. This is just things I've heard, things I've kind of researched on my own time, right? Let's keep going.
Craft and naval dominance. Let's start where military power begins: money. Money is one of the most important factors in determining a country's military strength, as it costs a colossal amount of money to forge a strong force. Millions of dollars can go into the production of a single tank, for example, with some of the world's finest fighter jets having 9-figure price tags.
Yeah.
Then there are the costs of the many smaller vehicles, weapons, and other pieces of equipment a strong military needs, plus funds for
Modern jet equipment is fucking insane, though.
From soldiers to mechanics, engineers, pilots, and more. It's no secret that the US spends heavily on defense. Whether you look at recent years or go back further in history, it's constantly had the biggest military budget by far, sometimes spending up to 10% of the country's entire gross domestic product, or GDP, on defense. In 2025, the US is expected to spend just under $900 billion on its military,
Holy fuck.
which is over 3% of its GDP.
$1 trillion,
The next
man.
biggest spender is China,
Basically.
with an officially reported 2025 defense budget of around $249 billion. Russia's budget.
See, like, that's what I mean. Like, China can compete, but with $249 billion to, what, 1 billion shy of a trill? Like, let's just say, like, you know, you guys spend so much more money on your military, on your defense, and by definition of that, on your offense. Again, I will say that I believe, I've said this before, a strong offense is the best defense. Plain and simple, right? Countries like this, you know, they're always going to be investing in their military. They're always going to be looking to take advantage of their neighbors when the opportunity arises. To deter that, you need to have a strong military. America has adopted that doctrine and has ridden with it since, what, I want to say World War II, basically. Monroe Doctrine kind of deal, right? Yeah, no, I agree with it. Now, obviously, that's not to say I agree with every case of American interventionism over the past 100 years, because a lot of it is bullshit. Let's be honest here with each other, guys. Like, I'm not trying to be any type of way. A lot of it was for nothing. A lot of it didn't serve anything, and a lot of it was corrupt. But that being said, when push comes to shove, and when a tyrant comes to threaten the Western world, yeah, you guys are the bulwark against it. Plain and simple. There is no debate against that. And in terms of Western nations, yeah, it's you guys, straight up. And I think anyone in a Western nation to disagree with that is really, really doing themselves and their nation a disservice. You know, there's nothing wrong with being able to admit that we have allies and that, you know, they protect us, you know, and they are the ones doing stuff for us. I think there's nothing wrong with admitting that.
Budget is even lower at approximately $126 billion. Even if you combined and doubled both, the total would still fall short of the US defense budget. And while some analysts suggest that China may underreport its actual spending, the US maintains a decisive lead, not just in funding.
I will say the Chinese march,
alliances, and cutting.
Would you technically call that a goose step?
Even more astonishingly,
not trying to be any type of way and not trying to pause too much. Just what kind of march is this? I find military marches very interesting. Our Canadian march is nothing like the one that you Americans have, or anything like the Chinese or anything like that. Is this technically a goose step? Is that what this would technically be called?
Actual spending. The US maintains a decisive lead, not just in
Pretty
funding,
sure, right?
but in global reach, alliances, and cutting-edge military technology. Even more astonishingly, if you added up the budgets of all the countries ranked 2nd to 10th in 2025 spending, which includes China, Russia, India, Saudi Arabia, the UK, Japan, Australia, France, and Ukraine, that still would not match the US budget. Next, let's look at manpower. People are the beating heart of the army. They're the ones who man the tanks, pilot the jets, fire the rifles, and so much more. You need trained, willing, and skilled fighters to build a truly strong fighting force, and the US certainly has plenty of those.
Yeah.
But there are several different ways to measure manpower, and the US doesn't top the list in every single one. So let's go through them and explore the value of each. First, available military manpower. This tells us how many people each country could mobilize in the most extreme situations.
Now, I just want to say this number matters a lot less. Obviously, we're going to listen to it. It's going to be some probably obscene number. No country is ever going to draft its available pool completely of manpower. It's going to be in the hundreds of millions, likely, right, for certain nations. I'm assuming America might be, what, 100, 120, 150 million, something like that. I think you guys have a population of roughly 450, 500 million people. So take a fifth of that, roughly. Yeah, something like that. A fifth, 2/5 of that, roughly, of draftable population. I'm sure you get that number, something like that. Just off the top of my head. But you're never going to draft fucking 2/5 of your population into the military. The only reason you would ever have to do that is if your fucking combat losses are so extreme, because you have to think, right, to be able to to equip that amount of people in practice, right? Now, for America, it's a little bit different, and that's why, like, this is again why I love your guys' Second Amendment. Fucking what, like 80%, 90% of your people just own guns in their household and are allowed to openly, right? And I think that's amazing for your country, straight up. A lot of people, oh my God, the Americans own guns. I think we need something like that here in Canada, if you want me to be completely honest. We don't. We have gun laws, right? A lot of guns are trying to be banned now. A lot of restrictions have been placed on firearms. You can legally own firearms if you get a license, but to actually be able to use them in any sort of way, you're very, very much restricted. And the RCMP, of course, needs to know that you own them when you're using them, when you're moving them. You know, in your own household, right? They have to be under lock and key, ammo and guns separately, different lock, different key, right? Trigger guard on the gun in its own lockbox. So you're not using it for defense. And if you do, you're going to get fucking tried, right? You're going to get charged. So it's just a case of like, yeah, every household in America has defense. And I think that's amazing.
This tells us how many people each country could mobilize in the most extreme situations like full-scale global warfare or a major invasion. According to GFP, the US could call on around 150 million people in total, which is close to half of the country's population. That's not the highest figure on the list, which is hardly surprising, as the US is not the most populous country. Instead, the two biggest countries in the world, China and India, come in first and second. China could call up around 764 million people, while India has an available military manpower pool of 662 million. The figures are quite similar in terms of the fit-for-service population. This tells us how many able-bodied people each country has that would be able to fight or play a part in a long-term military campaign if they had to. China once more tops the list with around 626 million. India comes in second with 522 million, and the US sits third with 124 million. However, these
never going to use those numbers,
as it's highly unlikely that countries like the US, China, or India would need to call up almost half of their entire populations to fight.
Literally,
Instead, to get a better view of how strong each country's force is, it's best to take a look at the numbers of active duty personnel and reservists. Active duty personnel are basically full-time members of the military. They're the most highly trained, combat-ready individuals, dedicating their lives to the military. Reservists, meanwhile, are people who have spent some time undergoing military training or service, but aren't currently involved with the army. They remain in reserve, ready to serve if and when called upon. The US has an impressive total of 1.3 million active duty personnel.
Jesus.
That once again puts it in third behind China and India. However, the difference this time is much smaller. India is only slightly ahead of America with 1.4 million.
Canada has 80,000.
While China takes the top spot.
70 to 80,000 total. Reserve and active, by the way.
That puts it in 10th place globally. Vietnam sits in the top spot with an astonishing 5 million reservists.
Jesus.
South Korea is in second with
kind of base that Vietnam has 5 million reservists. What the fuck?
3 million. Many of the countries taking the high spots in this list tend to have some sort of mandatory military service.
2.3 for Taiwan, makes sense.
Around having high numbers of reservists, rather than paying too many full-time salaries for active duty personnel. The US has always had a different strategy, focusing more on having highly trained, fully engaged soldiers ready to enter battle as and when required, rather than a huge reservist force. It's worth noting too, when it comes to manpower, that it's a question not only of quantity, but quality. A country could have 5 million soldiers but lack the infrastructure needed to properly train them for combat or equip them with the kinds of vehicles and weapons needed to outmatch their enemies.
Absolutely.
In contrast, the US has some of the strictest and most effective military training programs anywhere on Earth. This allows it to produce some of the most extraordinary military teams in history, from the Navy SEALs to the Green Berets.
I want to say too, and with your budget, right? And that was a theme of jealousy. When I was in the reserves, right, was the case of, like, you know, for range days and shit like that. You know, we didn't get to fire our weapons a ton, and even like rag force guys don't get to fire their weapons a ton because, you know, we just don't have the ammo for it. You know what I'm saying? Which is so fucking depressing, man. You have no idea. And then, you know, in America, it's just like, oh, fuck it, you just expend ammo. Like, it's no fucking tomorrow. Like, again, civvy side, you could just pick up ammo like there's no fucking tomorrow. So it's like, holy shit, you know. Goddamn, like it's funny because a lot of members I knew resorted to getting their license on their own time, their civilian gun license, and then buying firearms to train with on their own time, right? Because that's the most training you're going to get, like, to be completely honest, like in terms of firearm training, outside of like your range quals and all that, all the necessary stuff you have to get. Even in infantry, you're not shooting as much as you definitely should be. And that's just down to our budgetary constraints, plain and simple.
Produce some of the most extraordinary military teams in history, from the Navy SEALs to the Green Berets. Even small amounts of America's most elite squads are much deadlier than huge battalions of soldiers from many other countries across the world. Now let's take a look at the various branches that make up the US military, namely the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, and the Marine Corps. There are also two more branches,
Space Force and Coast?
and the Coast Guard, but they're less prominent and not as relevant for the time being in terms of overall military might.
So stupid that Space Force came to my mind first, dude. What the fuck?
Excel in one particular area but lag in others. Countries with long coastlines, for example, might invest heavily in strong naval forces to guard their waters, but might not have such strong ground or aerial forces.
It's a beautiful show.
Other countries put a great deal of focus on aerial superiority, but wouldn't stand much chance in a naval battle. One of the ways in which the US has always stood out is the overall balance of its military. Whether fighting on the ground, in the air, or at sea, the US always remains one of the strongest and most formidable forces for any opponent to overcome. It's dominant in all domains, but there are still a few important differences between them. The US Army, for example, is the biggest of all the US military branches. It has over 450,000 active duty personnel, with more than 325,000 National Guard members and over 175,000 Army Reserve personnel, adding up to over 950,000 soldiers.
So you guys explained to me too. So there's active, there's National Guard, and then there's Reserve. So National Guard are state troops is how you guys explained it to me. We don't have anything like that here in Canada. So what is your reservist thing? Because I always thought, right, like National Guard was essentially like your reservist, right? But now there's, like, I'm learning, right? Because I'm Canadian, I don't know this stuff, right? There's active duty, reserves, and then reservists. So what exactly are reservists? Like, what are their role? Do they have their own armories, their own regiments? How exactly does that work? I'm actually genuinely curious. Because in Canada, right, we only have Reg Force and Reserves, right? We don't have three like this, you know what I'm saying?
Soldiers in total. The Air Force comes next, with around 495,000 members overall. That includes 322,000 active duty personnel, 105 members of the Air National Guard, and 68,000 reservists. Then there's the Navy. The branch has around 337,000 active duty members, with 58,000 in reserve for a total of approximately 438,000. The Marine Corps also reinforces the Navy with close to 170,000 fighters of its own, and 33,000 more in reserve. These figures demonstrate the balance of America.
I didn't know Marines had reserves. Interesting.
To fight on any and all fronts. And it's not just in manpower that these three branches excel, but also in terms of the weapons, vehicles, and equipment they're able to call on. The US Army, for example, has some of the most powerful tanks, vehicles, artillery systems, and rocket launchers by far. GFP's data gives the US 4,640 tanks in total.
What a beautiful tank, man.
The M1 Abrams is the primary choice. This third-generation battle tank often tops experts' rankings of the world's toughest tanks. It's one of the heaviest in the world, tipping the scales at more than 73 tons, and has some of the strongest, most impenetrable armor around. A defensive powerhouse, it's also packed full of firepower, with a 120mm smoothbore cannon, multiple mounted machine guns, and some models even come with smoke grenade launchers too. The M1 Abrams is a long-running member of the US military, having been used as...
I wouldn't say some models, I feel like most are updated with that now.
Improved it over the years, upgrading the older models with modern features and technologies.
Exactly.
One of the most recent variants of the tank is the M1A2 Abrams SEP V3, fitted with superior defense against explosions, next-gen armor, and an added auxiliary power unit. Some countries boast more tanks overall than the US. China has 6,800 at the latest count, while Russia has 5,750. However, once again, it's a question of quality over quantity. Many of Russia's tanks are the T-72 model, which lags far behind the M1 Abrams in terms of offensive and defensive potential. Russia's more modern tank, the T-14 Armata, is a closer competitor to the Abrams, but there aren't too many of those in operation at the moment. For China, it's a similar story. The Chinese have two main tanks, the Type 96 and the Type 99. The Type 96 is no match for America's M1 Abrams. The Type 99, however, has several advantages over the Abrams, being both lighter at up to 58 tons and more mobile, reaching top speeds of up to 47 miles per hour, compared to the Abrams' 42 miles per hour. So as far as tanks go, America has a massive amount and the strongest units by most metrics.
I wouldn't really say weight or speed necessarily has any sort of real bearing on tanks in the modern sense. Like, They do, but they don't. Like, again, air is really what's going to win you wars. If you have air superiority, your tanks don't mean shit. You're just gonna fucking bomb those from the sky, and they're not gonna be able to touch you. You know what I'm saying? Like, air power really, really does reign supreme. So, like, again, under America's combined arms doctrine, like, their Abrams do exactly what they need them to do, and they could probably easily take a shot from these Type 99s. I don't know if Type 99 could take a shot from an Abrams, plain and simple. I just don't know if that would stand up. Chinese quality, not trying to talk shit, but it's usually much fucking worse than what we produce here in the West. I'm just saying.
Speeds of up to 47 miles per hour, compared to the Abrams' 42 miles per hour. So as far as tanks go, America has a massive amount and the strongest units by most metrics. There are some other excellent tanks out there, like the K2 Black Panther of
It
South
might take
Korea,
a shot or two, but I
still
don't.
reigns supreme, and
I don't
the US
know.
is already working on its next improvement, the Abrams X, which is set to be lighter, faster, and more efficient than any M1 Abrams seen so far. In terms of armored vehicles, the US dominance is even clearer to see. GFP statistics show that the US has more than 390,000 armored vehicles in total. That's
Damn.
much higher than the country in second place, which is India, with just under 150,000. China takes third spot with a little over 144,000, and Russia has more than 131,000.
How many of those are just
Even if
armored
you add
cars,
all the
like
Russia and
BMPs
China's
from like the
vehicles,
70s,
US
though?
could still have more. But again, we have to talk about quality, not just quantity. Luckily for the US, the quality of its armored vehicles is second to none. It has an extensive and diverse fleet of vehicles, each one with its own assigned tasks and features. Some are good for transporting troops in large numbers across tricky terrain. Others are designed for support and evacuation. Others
Man, the
still
Bradleys
more
are so sick.
offensively focused, boasting their own weapons.
I hear a lot of like people that have operated in Bradleys say they're like ass because they're so cramped and stuff like that. But just like the multi-role of them is so fucking sick to me. Got that autocannon, you have tow launchers on the fucking thing. The survivability of them as well is apparently fucking supreme from what we've seen. They're just such cool, swanky little fucking vehicles. I don't know, man. Like straight up, like they just do everything you want them to do. I don't know.
Designed for support and evacuation. Others still are more offensively focused, boasting their own weapons and armaments. There are the Bradley Fighting Vehicles, or BFVs, for example. Several thousand of these vehicles are in action today, with many boasting 25mm chain guns and Tau missile launchers, which is enough firepower to take out enemy tanks at distances of up to 13,000 feet.
Yeah.
Numerous other vehicles make up the US Army's expansive fleet, including Strikers,
Tows make tanks go
M88s,
boom, dude.
M113s, and MRAPs. They help with reconnaissance, transport, towing damaged vehicles to be repaired, and even helping units safely traverse areas with hidden mines and explosive devices. Moving on to artillery, this is one area in which the US is a little lacking. It boasts 671 self-propelled artillery systems, which pales in comparison to Russia's 5,000 and
I'm gonna be honest again. Self-propelled artillery, it all depends on doctrine, and American doctrine doesn't rely on self-propelled artillery. Like I'm surprised you even have this many, to be honest with you. It's kind of like, it's not outdated, right? But again, in the age of fucking air supremacy, why would you drop conventional shells when you could just go fucking bomb them into submission? You know what I mean? And I think America has gone down that doctrine a lot heavier, right? Just call in fucking air support and bomb the grid square that way. It'll be a lot more accurate, probably a lot easier. You know what I'm saying? Rather than deploy self-propelled guns. Now, obviously, China, Russia, their doctrine has always been overwhelming artillery support, overwhelming ground support in that way. So it makes sense why they have all this shit, but it's also a display of like an older thought process, is what I will say. This used to work, right? This used to work a lot better in wars past than it does in the modern era, let's say, in my opinion. Now that's not to say like fucking mass artillery barrages aren't still effective, because they absolutely are, but again, they can be countered very, very easily in the modern warfare. In the modern warfare scene, I believe.
China's 3,500. With 1,212 towed artillery systems, America
Yeah,
again
if you're
falls
gonna-
behind multiple rivals, including Russia with 8,500 and South Korea with 4,400.
Yeah.
For rocket projectors, the US sits 5th in the rankings with 641. China has 2,750 and Russia has more than 3,000. This then is an area in which the US could consider investing in or developing further.
I wouldn't
if it wants to
bother.
keep up with the competition.
I honestly
Now
wouldn't
let's
bother.
take off and explore America's extraordinary air force. As far as aerial
build more planes and you'll win.
It's
like straight up.
No other
like,
country even comes
no bullshit.
close, no matter which metric you look at.
Yeah.
In terms of total aircraft, for example, the US has over 13,000.
Yeah.
That's more than China and Russia put together, with
your artillery doesn't mean anything.
And 4,300 for Russia. The quality of America's aircraft is also undisputed, with some of the greatest, most expensive, and most powerful bombers and jets the world has ever seen. Let's start with the bombers. The US is one of only a small number of countries to boast of its own bomber fleet, capable of dropping both conventional and nuclear bombs. The likes of B-2 Spirits and
I have to say, these planes are fucking like amazing to see. I can't imagine. Like, I've seen some flyovers, like some flybys of like stealth bombers and the what are they, the B2s and the B1s. I believe I saw a flyover of a B2 at like a stadium or something like that, like just a football stadium. And bro, like just being able to see that shit is just fucking so awe-inspiring, you know. I would shit my pants, you know. Again, if you're an enemy of America, you shit your pants, bro. Like, what do you do? What do you do? You can't stop this shit. Like, you plain and simple can't. These planes can go across the fucking world and you can't do anything about it. You can shoot them down, maybe, if you're lucky, but you know, most of the time you can't even detect this shit. Like, that's the problem. It's crazy shit. Such crazy force. I would love to see one of these planes in person. I can't imagine.
B-1B Lancers form that fleet. The Spirits cost over $1 billion each, but the US still has around 20 of them, which is easily enough to wipe out huge numbers of ground forces or even entire bases.
Honestly, I thought they cost
can even
more.
Drop nuclear warheads if needed, as well as bunker-busting bombs that can penetrate hundreds of feet into the earth. Then there are the jets. Look at any list of the world's best jets, and you're sure to see US Air Force models claiming several of the top spots, like the F-22 Raptor and the F-35 Lightning II. These jets are extraordinarily fast and capable of breaking the sound barrier without any trouble whatsoever. The F-22 can go twice as quick as sound, soaring to heights of 50,000 feet or more, and flying for more than 1,850 miles before it needs to refuel.
It's a fucking spacecraft, man.
Another aerial titan,
straight up.
Superior stealth qualities and ferocious firepower to outmatch almost any enemy jet it could encounter. The Air Force has hundreds of these jets, around 180 F-22s and more than 300 F-35s, backed up by hundreds of slightly less advanced but still powerful models.
Man, that VTOL capability in the, like right here in the bottom left here,
backed up by hundreds of slightly less
it's
advanced,
just, that shit's so fucking crazy to me, man.
Like the F-15s and F-16s. Other countries have some
like air advancement in general. It's so awesome to me.
J-20 Mighty Dragon or the Russian Sukhoi Su-57.
Mighty Dragon.
The total strength of the US Air Force places it far ahead of either of its main rivals. And the impressive statistics don't stop there. The US Air Force also has around 600 tankers, which can refuel jets and bombers in the air, 920 transport aircraft, multiple reconnaissance planes, and thousands upon thousands of helicopters. In fact, GFP stats show a total of over 5,800 helicopters
Holy
for America,
shit.
with more than 1,000 attack helicopters.
Fuck.
Other countries cannot compete with that.
No.
Russia is the nearest rival, but only has a fraction of the American tally, with 1,651 helicopters and 557 attack units. Finally, let's look at the US Navy and assess how well prepared America is for combat at sea. Yet again, the US dominates many statistics in this category, though not quite as many as it does on land or in the air.
Holy shit.
As far as overall Navy sizes go, for example, China takes the crown. It's invested massively in its naval force over recent years and can now call on over 750 vessels, including warships, submarines, and more. America's Navy is the second largest, with a total of 440 vessels. Of those vessels,
now, I'm not trying to be that guy.
America's Navy is the second largest.
Of this 750 vessels, again, I'd be very, very curious to know exactly what the Chinese are fielding. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how many of these are fucking straight up just like fucking coastal craft from like the fucking 70s or the 80s, man? Like, just old, you know, not new, not, you know, updated, fucking just literally rust on the fucking bottom of the shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to be a dick. But that's the thing when talking about like Russia or the Chinese at this point in time, or North Korea, any of that shit, right? A lot of their equipment, it's on paper going to look like a lot, but it's old systems, it's old equipment. You know, those scout cars, right? A scout car could literally be a fucking BMP from like the 60s, 70s, as I said, right? It's not you know, that's gonna pop like a fucking like a cherry fucking like against anything that fights it nowadays. You know what I'm saying? Like a Carl G could pop that instantly. You know what I'm saying? An M2 Law, anything we have that has a mild amount of explosive could fuck that up. You know what I'm saying? That's the case.
With a total of 440 vessels. Of those vessels, 11 are carrier ships, which are some of the most important elements in any great navy. The carriers allow the US to transport jets, attack helicopters, and other aircraft huge distances across the globe for military operations far from home. China can't compete with that, as it has only 3 carriers for now. Russia, meanwhile, has just 1. As far as helicopter carriers go, the US again leads the way with 9. China has 4, along with Japan, and Russia has none. Again, this gives the US a huge edge in terms of planning and implementing long-running, long-range military operations anywhere it wants. The US also has the most destroyers, with 81 in total, that live up to their name, wreaking destructive havoc wherever they go, targeting enemy vessels, aircraft, and even
the reload rate on those fucking things, man. Holy shit, that autoloader, dude.
Destroyers, while Russia, which lags in many naval statistics, has
God, that's sexy.
Not all naval forces float on the water's surface.
Oh my God. It's like a 3.5 second reload.
Waiting to strike. Submarines make up another large part of the US Navy fleet, with 70 in total. Russia sits in second with 63, while China has 61. So by almost all of these major metrics, the US Navy is ahead of its competition. It has a mighty naval force with some of the finest subs, destroyers, and colossal carriers to conduct all manner of military operations at sea. But there are still a few areas of improvement. The US has 0 frigates, for instance, while many countries have at least a dozen, and China has close to 50. America has no patrol vessels either, while China boasts 150. The number of corvettes is also quite low, with
again, patrol vessels are
either, while China boasts 1.
Again, like it all depends, right? It all depends is what I will say. Again, with your Air Force, a lot of these ships are just not going to be able to fucking stand to any of the carrier craft that you guys can deploy, like straight out, and that's just the simple truth of it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, holy fuck.
150. The number of corvettes is also quite low, with only 26, far below China's 72 and Russia's 83. And it has just 8 mine and countermine warships, while Russia and China again claim the top spots with 47.
That I would genuinely look into if you're going to be fighting a country like China.
The US already has plans underway to construct more frigates and corvettes to keep pace with growing naval forces in the East. Add to that the fact that the US is working on next-generation jets, tanks, vehicles, and surveillance systems, and boasts the world's greatest military intelligence capabilities. And it's clear to see that no other country comes close to America when it comes to defense. And it's likely to remain that way for many more years to come, with the US committed to keeping defense spending high and maintaining its position as the world's undisputed #1 military power. Can you see any other country coming close to the US military in years to come, or even overtaking the US someday? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you as always for watching.
Oh guys, that was awesome. That was How Strong is the US Military in 2025 by The Military Show. Thought that was a great video, very educational. Again, they're going and they're giving us the exact stats, which I very much appreciate. But again, I wouldn't give too much concern to like the aspects where like certain nations are like outnumbering you, right? Again, when you're talking about Eastern countries, outnumbering doesn't really mean much, because they could just be pressing their older equipment into action to make the numbers look bolstered, right? Or to make the numbers look bigger. I doubt what they have is by any means modern equipment. America, I think, is always going to fucking reign supreme in that regard. American industry, American industrial capabilities. Again, the only real thing I could see bringing America to its knees is, of course, internal strife. Maybe caused by a foreign power. That's something you guys need to look into. Maybe electronic warfare type of thing. Or, of course, again, your overseas assets being seized, which could lead to the downfall of some of your more advanced technologies over time. Now, that would only affect you year, 2 years into, like, let's say a major conflict. It wouldn't affect you immediately. So depending on how things go, I think absolutely you guys would have that shit under control. I thought this was a very educational video. I thought this was very, very good. Of course, if you guys enjoyed, make sure you leave a like, subscribe for more content from me. Of course, leave your recommendations down in the comments below. Big thank you to all of our members, all of our Hastati, and of course our Prefect, Fear and Hobbit, and of course our Principe, Dagenhart. Appreciate you guys. You guys inspire me to make more content for you guys every single day, of course. And with that, guys, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, guys.